This segment is brought to you by Jigmaster Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com and use promo code PNF20 and save 20% off your next jig order today.
You're listening to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast with your hosts Ryan Milford and Sean Lavery. Welcome back to Bass Fishing for Noobs on the Paddle and Fin podcast. I'm Ryan Milford. We got Sean Lavery in here.
Hey guys.
And we also have Mr. Jimmy Skinner in here.
What's up?
Once again, he was on here not too long ago. You know, we got the three coolest and best looking hosts of Paddle and Fin here on this episode tonight.
I think so.
But yeah, so Jimmy's going to talk to us a little bit about drop shot. You know, it's something that a lot of people have mentioned on here. We haven't actually dedicated an episode to it, and I still don't really know how to do it. So, like, as far as rigging it up and all that. So, Jimmy's going to drop some knowledge on us. So, welcome back to Bass Fishing for Noobs.
Appreciate it, man. Glad to be back. I love coming on here and talking to y'all. Talking to everybody makes me feel like I'm smart when I'm not. So, I'll drop as much knowledge as I can. I'm no expert at drop shot, but it's definitely something that if I go out, I have a drop shot with me. So, but yeah, we can start.
I keep saying it's the pros are really into it, and it's something I've been meaning to try. I've thrown it a few times, but never had luck, so I never stuck with it for long. But I'm sure that technique or something is lacking on my end. So I'm excited to learn more.
A lot of it was patience, because I was kind of that way when I first started it, but it's not. So it was like patience to figure it out the first couple of times. And then after that, it doesn't, like, I don't feel like I'm having to be patient to use it. But it is, like, I explained it to somebody the other day. I was like, it's one of those techniques that anybody can do. Like, I'll let my daughter throw it. It's just like, taking a reel, like a Zipco and a bobber and, an earthworm, throwing it out to catch. It's so simple. Like, you can really overthink it, in my opinion. Now, for guys like fishing the Great Lakes, stuff like that, where fish being line shy and all the pressure, and you really got to dial it in. And like when we had Cody Milton on, he was talking about vertically dropping a drop shot with 6 foot leader, 6 foot from the weight to the hook. That's outside of my wheelhouse right now, but it's definitely, like, I'm going to La Crosse for that bass event, August 15th, I think it is. And where I'm going to be fishing, most likely I probably won't be in the right spot to do it, but hopefully in pre-fishing I can go out and find some deeper water to kind of mess with that on. But just because I want to say that I've thrown a drop shot up north. So,
well, start out, for people that don't know what a drop shot is, explain what it is and how it's set up.
Okay, so best way to describe a drop shot. So basically you just have some form of weight, and we'll go over the different weights here in a little bit. On the bottom of, most of the time, a leader line. You'll go up so many inches depending on how you're fishing it, where you're fishing it, time of year. So just for instance, let's say you've got your weight tied on the bottom. You'll have a foot of line come up, and then you'll have, again, one of many different types of hooks you can use tied on that stands out. So it'll be, hook point up, standing basically horizontal. That'll have your weight or your lure on it. And then, like I was saying, if you're using a leader, then, you go up from there, and you may have anywhere from another foot to 6 feet of line tied onto your main line. Most of the time, and I honestly don't know anybody that throws it with a casting setup, but it'll be on a spinning setup. Most of the time you're fishing a lighter line when you're fishing a drop shot, which isn't always true, because I fish it in a little bit thicker areas sometimes. But yeah, basically that's it. It's just a presentation that you throw. The weight holds it to the bottom, and it just holds a worm suspended off the floor. You can kind of wiggle it like a shaky head. You can dead stick it, which is about the only thing I do with it. But it's a really good way to get fish in high pressured areas and
So,
ultra clear areas.
so are you always using a worm with that, or are you ever using any other type of soft plastic on there?
Um, for me, most of the time I'm throwing something. For people watching on YouTube, um, this is a 4.5 inch robo worm. It's basically like, imagine like a trick worm, like from Zoom. It's basically all it is. The robo worms have a flatter bottom. This is a morning dawn with a chartreuse tail. That just seems to be a good go-to color for me. But you can throw different places, different, like I'm really hoping to try this for smallmouth, but this is the Kitech Easy Shiner. That's a little 3 inch paddle tail. So you can do the minnow style baits. Then there's like fatter headed worms like the Zoom Z Drop. Uh, the KVD Dream Shots are really good. It's kind of an in between of a shad and a worm, and it's got a very flat bottom, so it works really well. But most of the time, if I'm throwing it, I'm throwing some form of robo worm.
You nose hook them?
Yes. So if I'm fishing, we'll go with a scenario. So like, I like using it in marinas and around rocks and stuff like that, a little deeper. I'll use a small circle hook. Like this is a Gamakatsu number one. I mean it's tiny, but that's a number one split shot slash drop shot hook. And when I'm fishing a marina or somewhere like that, I'll just barely nose hook it, kind of like that. Um, Another
I
thing
always thought those were wacky hooks.
you can use them. I actually have used them. So I played around. Uh, like if you're using Yamamoto Senkos and they tear up, before I started using Mendit, I would keep those like halves and downsize the hook, and that worked a few times. I haven't really caught any size with it, but it's a fun way to reuse what was left of that plastic.
Hmm.
But yeah, you can use those as wacky hooks. I use weedless wacky hooks. That's probably the only reason I don't use these. And
Okay.
these are fairly small. I do use sometimes bigger. Like when I'm using like the Zoom Z drops, I use. See if I can give you a good comparison of those two hooks. I don't know how well you can see it, but that's a number one, and I think that's a 1/0. But those are both Gamakatsu. But yeah, no nose hook most of the time. Sometimes I will do it where I'm not sure the different way to you would call it. It's both of them I consider nose hook, but sometimes when I do it, I bury the tip like that where you just see the bottom of the hook, and then sometimes I'll do it where you penetrate through the head like a traditional what I would call nose hook like that. Um, Both work. I can't honestly say I've been able to figure out one that works better than the other. It's just one of those like situational things. If I'm getting a bunch of bites but I'm not hooking up, I'll usually go all the way through the nose. Um, so I can definitely say I start with the tip buried that way. If I'm coming up through like a grass line or like a light grass line or something, it'll get through it. But yeah, so most of the time with that style setup, nose hooking, you can another hook style you can use. This is a owner cover shot. Let's see if I can get that. This is a so that has a little plastic keeper tied in right there, and that one you Texas rig. And I've used it in light grass. After talking with Cody Milton the other day and Matt Ball, I didn't realize that people actually like you can heavy fish this thing and almost like punching. Like you can put a big enough weight on it, and then you can throw one of these cover shot hooks, and then you've got a very weedless setup to give another. Because like right now, for instance, a lot of like last week on Gunnersville, the fish were suspended in grass in deep water. I was able to fish them with a big worm, but if I'd known what they were telling me about doing it with a drop shot, I could have probably gotten more bites because instead of having to hop something up to them, it's just suspended coming through the grass. So yeah, there's a couple different ways you can do it.
All right, so you said that you're throwing it on a spinning setup.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of rod are you throwing it on, like length and action and all that?
My go-to has been a 7-foot medium Dobbins 702. I actually want to say the 702 is classified as a medium heavy, but it is a medium in my opinion. It's very, very flimsy. I say flimsy, it's very soft, which is what you want that, in my opinion, uh, because when you're fishing these circle hooks, it's just like saltwater fishing. You don't like hook set. You just reel into the weight, and that it sets itself. So I feel like with a stiffer rod, because I've thrown it on my wacky rig rod before, which is a true, it's like a 7-foot medium heavy spinning rod, and I probably pulled it out of 90% of the mouths of the bites I was getting. So yeah, 7-foot, I'll say medium. A lot of guys throw a 6/8, which 4 inches of difference probably ain't that much, honestly. But yeah, for me, 7-foot Dobbins 702. I was using the Colt series, which is the lower end series. I broke it. Not anything they did wrong. I shut it in my car door. So I'm looking at upgrading that. I just recently got on the Dobbins rods team, so I'm probably gonna go through and upgrade a bunch of my rods now, which I like. I like, not to get off subject of the drop shot, but I like the Sierra series for anybody looking for something that's like mid-range on price, high quality, good parts, but not looking to spend $300. They're like $140 to $160. That's what all of my other ones are. So I'll probably just pick up that same rod in that series to stay with that. But yeah, using that in a 2500 series Shimano Nasi spinning reel.
All right, so okay, so you said the line from your rod comes down, you
Mm-hmm.
tie it on your hook, and then you also tie on a leader line on that hook, and then it goes down to a sinker
So close.
or a weight. Do
So
it.
it would be, so like for instance, if I'm fishing an area with more grass, it'll be 20-pound braid, high vis yellow, because drop shot's kind of like a Ned rig. Sometimes you don't feel the bite, you're just watching the line movement. So 20-pound high vis yellow braid, and then I tie on to a 12-pound Sunline FC Sniper leader. You tie in your hook in that leader, not on the main line, and then down whatever the bottom is, you use one of these drop shot hook weights. And if you've never seen one, it's got this little the line tie is open, but it has a place you wedge the line in. So you would feed your line through, and then you pop it tight. And then I just put 1 or 2 half hitches behind it as backup. And what's great about doing that is, like, if you don't put the half hitches in it and you're just using lead weights, if you get it hung up on something, you can just pop it loose, lose the weight, and then you can go. I mean, nobody wants to, leave the weight laying on the bottom, but, it's cost friendly at that point. And you don't lose the time, because I won't lie, braid the leader, tying leader knots and stuff takes up time.
Yeah,
I've gotten pretty good at it, but
I'm still trying to get used to the braid to leader thing. I went out this morning, and 3 times my knot broke, and like it was wild casting each time, but my fluoro leader was still like in the eyes of the rod, so I'd have to grab it and bring it up and retie it again and everything. And I've got it set up where I don't feel the knot going through the eyes or anything like that, but for some reason,
if it's catching right there at the end, now something I've learned, I will not use micro guides if I'm fishing braid to leader, period.
Maybe that's my issue because I do have micro guides.
I've noticed that unless I try, I can't try a double uni knot on micro guides, or it does that every time. If I have to tie an FG or something small.
I've seen.
I was using an Alberto.
See,
Okay.
that's the knot that I use. And I've gotten pretty good. So I went through a long, like, trial and error with that. I started with blood knots, and I liked the blood knot, and I need to go back and try. That's a saltwater knot for most people. I need to go back and try it again for what I had found out. So when I first started doing Alberto knots, I was going from 20-pound braid to, no, I'm sorry, it wasn't even on a spinning reel. I was going from 50-pound braid to a 12-pound leader. And it worked for a while, and then it would come apart. I'd set the hook, it'd pop loose, and maybe I'd get lucky and get a hold of the line, and I'd look, and you could see where the knot had either come undone or the knot had broke. Talked to a guy at a tackle shop, and he was like, you need to get the diameters closer together. So I stepped up. When I'm using 50-pound braid, I started using like an 18-pound leader, and I haven't had one let go on me yet. I've had to break a couple of them because I've been so fouled up.
See, I'm using 15-pound braid that is supposed to have the diameter of I think it's 4-pound line, and then 12-pound fluorocarbon. So they're both smaller line.
So something that another thing I've had to really mess with the Alberto knot is some braids and some fluoros, or in the instance I was trying out that stuff that Brian uses, the
Fluoroclear.
Yeah.
P-line. Yeah.
Yeah. I was trying that out. And no matter what I did, it would slip. Like I could almost make it slip when I would cinch it. I started having to do way more wraps because I found a video of a guy doing it in saltwater, and he was talking about this braid isn't as coarse and this line is very slick, like his leader line. So instead of doing 7, he would do 15 one way and then 15 back the other.
So you saying that makes me think that might have been my issue, because I never saw like neither side of the line still had a knot on it. So I'm wondering if it came. I know that braid does have a a waxy coating on it.
Yeah.
And so that might have been the issue there. But I wrap it 8 to 10 times each way. So
and
maybe I need to wrap it a little more.
You have to make sure on the Alberto knot and stuff I've noticed. So when you make your loop and you start your Alberto knot, I always come in from the bottom and then start my wrap. You have to make sure when you finish, you go out.
Back through the same way.
Right. I've messed up before, and it flipped over in my hand and came through 3 casts. It broke. And I know that I did that, and I was like, well, it'll still work. Cinched it down, it broke, and I was like, okay. And I've done that a few times since then just to see if it's consistent. It hasn't always broke that quick, but it usually ends up letting go. But yeah, so I had a lot of trouble. I went down to 10-pound high-vis braid Power Pro, and I tried throwing Seagar Invis-X, I think it was, and 6-pound or something like that, because we've got a reservoir here that's real clear that I wanted to try it on. And I think after the 4th leader in an hour that came apart, I was done with that. I went back to, I don't throw anything less than 10-pound now.
I know one thing you were talking about when I first learned to tie drop shots. I was making my leader by just letting the tag end the length of the leader, or from the hook to the weight. It was just, I would just make my tag end really long, run it back through the eye to make it stand out, and then that's how I got my length below the hook, if you will.
Yeah.
Is that how you do it generally?
So I should have researched it before I got on. I don't even know what the knot is that I tie the hook with, but what I do, so I always start, my minimum, the total length of leader will be 4 feet, 4 to 5 feet. and that just gives me a lot. Even if I end up cutting off 2 feet of that, it gives me a lot to get my knots tied, get my hook where I want it, and then dial it in. So I'll tie my Alberto knot, then I take my hook, and if my tag end's coming down, hook tip up, I slide the hook up through it, and I go up, wherever I want to tie it. You take the line and you fold it over into a circle, and the hook will be sitting on top, and you'll have a circle in the line. You wrap the hook through that top part of that circle 10 times and pull tight, and it puts like these little bands of a knot on both sides of it, and it holds it perfectly straight out. And I've never done it, but the guy that taught me knows how to do it. You can back that knot off, and you can adjust the hook up and down if you need, like on the fly, if you do it right.
Okay.
I've never tried that. But then you have all that. I mean, I usually end up with like 2 feet past that, and you can start playing with your where you put your weight at, and trim off what you don't need. I'm not the best person to give you the best information on like leader length at certain times of year. I know when it's cold, an old man told me and a buddy that like whatever worm I'm using, like if I'm using this 4.5, I put it on the hook, I lay it down, and wherever that stops, I put the weight right below it. So the leader, the hook's never, because like cold water, they're on the bottom. Not always, of course. You can argue all that, but in theory, summertime, like if you do anything with your graph, you'll notice, fish are suspended at different levels. And that's when you adjust that, and you can do like your graph homework. Like if you find a school of fish and you're like, okay, they're 5 feet off the bottom, so I want my hook 5 foot above the weight. And you don't have to have it exact, but.
So are you carrying like a spool of line out there with you that to be able to tie on the leaders as you go?
I am. And not just because of the drop shot. Everything I fish, and like we kind of talked about it last time. Almost every presentation I fish, I'm fishing braid to leader anyway. I like the sensitivity that braid brings. I cannot stand throwing straight fluoro. It's I just don't like it. It gets line memory real bad. It's expensive, and you burn through a lot of money. I mean, look at the pros. Like a lot of those guys re-spool every day they practice, every day they tournament fish. Some of these guys will swap it during the tournament. Like I ain't about that. That's just too much money and too much time. Yeah. So I always am running, 65-pound braid on top water, 50-pound braid on basically everything else. Spinning reels, 10 and 20. So I usually keep 18-pound fluoro with me, 12-pound, and I've been keeping 8, but I haven't really been using it. Just because I have not been having luck with a light line. I don't know if I need to change my knot or change where I'm fishing. It's just not been working out. It's something I'm still got to work on.
Well, I was going to say earlier when you said that you throw it on like 12-pound fluoro, I was like, that seems awful heavy. Like for me, like a spinning combo, I don't put anything heavier than 10-pound on it. And I was wondering like if that was like just a preference for you or like what most people would usually throw it on.
I mean, like if you think about like pros and stuff throwing drop shots, most of those guys are, going to like St. Clair and Erie and places like that, and they're throwing 6-pound, 4-pound. They're because the fish, it's clear water. The fish are super pressured, so that's all that matters. Something a lot of people don't seem to take into account now. So like if I tell you I'm using 20-pound fluoro, like if you'd told me you were using 20-pound 15 years ago, like mono, that's giant line in my opinion. Well, like my 12 has, I'm trying to think of the diameter. It's hard to compare because now the diameter is so much different, but
it's kind of the same concept I was talking about with that braid that I use, where it's 15-pound and it's supposed to have the diameter of like 4-pound.
Exactly.
Line.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. So like I've done tests with it. Like when you drop that in clear water, if you drop that 12-pound leader in there, it disappears. That FC Sniper, it's gone.
But do you feel like that may take away from some of the sensitivity with it being heavier?
No, because of the braid. Like so something here we can touch on. I don't. A lot of guys fish tungsten drop shot weights, and I have some for certain situations. I don't need them. Some people would disagree with this. Something I do if I'm losing feeling in the bottom, fishing deeper, I just tie on a heavier drop shot weight. I'll go up 3/8, half, stuff like that. Because then the way you fish a drop shot, it has a tendency to get caught up in rocks and stuff like that. These weights will find a crevice, they'll lock in, and they're gone. When you're fishing tungsten, you're going to blow through tungsten. Just like I was saying with the knot, how you can tie the knot where you can pop this loose kind of quick so that you don't have to retie your leader. Well, that's going to turn into lots of dollars of tungsten stuck to the bottom of the river. So, like, as far as sensitivity goes, no, I don't think so. I can usually, and I think it's more the braid than anything, but I can usually feel, and like, unless you're throwing it like on a sandy or muddy bottom, I usually feel everything that's going. And then at the same time, I usually am fishing it the way some people do in Ned Rig, where I'm watching the line more than I'm worried about what I'm feeling. Like, so when I cast out, I'm going for feeling when I first get it going. If I'm throwing it at like a pile of rocks or something like that. Once I get it to there, I just watch the line. And like I was saying in the beginning, like dead stick and Julie, what I'm doing, I put the rod at like 9 o'clock, and I just sit there, just hold it. And then every now and then, like, I'll just start giving it like some of my casts will last 5 minutes or more. I bomb it out there and just wait and just ease and work it all the way back to the boat. I've had them bite right under the boat multiple times.
I was going to ask you about that. I was going to, like, when I was trying it, that's what I was doing. I was chucking it out there, and then I was wondering maybe this should be more of a vertical thing where I am actually seeing stuff on my graph and trying to drop right on top of it. I didn't know how many people cast it out and retrieve versus just drop it straight down and hope you get it in the right spot.
So a lot of the guys I talk to, like down here in the South, it's like a cast and retrieve thing. You definitely, obviously, can vertically drop it. I've never done it, honestly. Usually when I'm vertical fishing, I'm using like a spoon, which these are totally, your spoon, you're chasing fish that are actively feeding, and drop shot, you're making them bite. Like, for instance, so like if I just can't catch anything and I'm just struggling, like, instead of rolling up to a bridge, finding a piling, graphing, vertical drop, I'll back off the bridge and I'll cast all the way across all the pilings. I'll let it hit and I will work it all the way back across all of them to me, versus trying to drop straight down on them. Marinas, it's hard to do, but I will throw that up under docks, and it just looks like, just a little bait profile just sitting there, just chilling in the current or chilling in the water. But there's tons of different ways you can do it. It's definitely something you can just experiment with. Sometimes, like, if I know the fish are biting, like if I've got like a hump and the fish are there, like, I won't vertical fish them. I back off, I'll throw at them, and I'll throw to the target and just let it sit there. And I won't do that. I won't start dragging it towards me for 2 minutes. I'll just let it sit there. And then every now and then just give it a kind of, a tug or just a slow drag. It's a fun bait. I mean, a lot of baits are like this, where you can shake them and really make them bite. Like, if you're starting to get those finicky, like tap, 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 it is fun. You can just barely start to, like, just barely wiggle your wrist, and, I'd like to see, like, footage of it. Whatever it does usually just pisses them off, and they just go ahead and commit.
So about the weight, you touched on, the tungsten lead thing a little bit, but there's different styles of weight, like Wicked Weights, get on the website, they got a couple different styles. They got like a teardrop style, and then they got the like the long skinny one, like what you were holding up a minute ago.
Yeah, the cylinder weight. Yeah.
So how do you pick which one you want?
Well, about the only time I use one of these cylinder style weights is like grassier areas or like finer rock, like gravel. Um,
What
I've
about pea
thrown
gravel?
right because I've thrown
Okay.
them like around like riprap, and I usually don't get these back. But they snag in everything when you're doing something like they find a crevice. Um, I'm not big on the teardrop style. Uh, I've used them, and one day I'll love them, and the next day I'll hate them. I usually just go with a lead ball style drop shot weight, and these are just my go-to. I don't feel like I snag these up, and like I was saying, how I'm not afraid to throw a bigger, heavier one to really keep that bottom contact. That having that little bit bigger profile could dodge some of those places it would normally get stuck, or it could get it stuck harder. Because I mean, no matter what you do, you're gonna get a drop shot snagged up in something. You know, you, I, the weight snags, the hook tip will grab stuff when you're nose hooking it. Like you're gonna get it stuck. So there's no real way to prevent that. Um, but yeah, so like the ball head will usually go for like the rip wrap. Trying to think of other places. I always throw this one around like docks and wood. I really only use the cylinder one around like light grassy areas, or if I've ran out of the other. That's about it. Because like if you looked in my tackle box right here right now, I keep like 10 of these, and I probably keep 30 of the balls. Just this is what I'm going to throw for everything I can, and this is my backup or grass. And you can get those in heavyweights too. The something that I only recently learned about. It's called power shotting, and apparently you can get like 1 ounce drop shot weights and punch drop shots, like
Wow.
legit punch drop shots. The tactical bassin guys were talking about it.
But
I know
would
I've
So
you
heard the term before.
would you
when
like
when
switch to casting gear at that point, or?
I probably would, just because that 7 footer, I think max can handle like a half ounce, and I'd end up disintegrating that rod, especially where I'm wanting to use it at. Like we're normally punching 2 ounce tungsten, but it's like a mat like this thick that's just basically like trying to punch through concrete, and then it's open underneath. So I'm looking forward to when winter comes back, because that's when we go out there, because it's in a spring and the water actually stays warm. So all the fish just sit in those mats. So I'm gonna try it this year. Like I'm sure I'll have to probably like, I honestly haven't thought this part through yet. I don't know if I would have to try to do it on like light braid but straight braid, or heavier leader and keep the fluoro.
Hmm.
So to be continued. I will let you know. It'll probably come back to I will never try that again. That costs too much. I can only imagine what a 1 ounce and a half tungsten drop shot weight is going to cost. And I've never seen a drop shot lead weight that big before. Not saying
Yeah,
they don't make
be
them. I just
interesting.
haven't seen one.
Now, your retrieve, you said, is basically just a drag, a slow drag, or are
Yeah.
you popping it? Okay, because that was the other thing I was curious about. I kept thinking I could feel the bottom with my weight, but I wasn't sure. Okay, if I'm casting out, and
Hmm.
I know my weight's on the bottom because I can feel that, but how do I know my hook and my worm isn't on the bottom then too? Like, how do I know I have it raised up enough so that only my weight is on the bottom?
So I, I mean, obviously, so when I throw out, feel the bottom contact, that's when I just you know, pull up kind of high, keep that line. I always keep the line tight. And you know, the weight's going to stay on the bottom unless you're really pumping it. But even when you pump it, as long as you're not continuously reeling up the slack, it's going to go back to the bottom. So, I mean, all you will be changing is the angle of the hook and the worm. But as long as you keep your rod tip up, it's not just laying down.
Okay.
Um, Obviously, vertical fishing is where you're going to get the perfect presentation where it's sitting sideways. But I've had a lot of luck doing it the way I do it, and I don't. So like if you're like when I Texas rig and I'm doing a dragging cast, I cast out and I'll work my way all the way down and then pull up. I don't do that when I drop shot. I probably, the rod is from like 12 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It never really goes past that. I always keep it up. So it's shorter drags, but I'm doing them so slow they seem like they last forever. But you're probably
Okay.
not covering but 10 or 15 feet every movement. But, and what I was saying about fishing it all the way to the boat, a lot of the times is just like with any bait, they followed it all the way there, but they're not going to react until you go to pull it out of the water. And I've had a lot of times where you're pulling it up and then it just pulls right back down. And the bite is something you can talk about because people always ask with, like, when I'm talking to new guys fishing, they're like, what does the bite feel like? The drop shot, sometimes they freight train it. Sometimes it feels like you're fishing bluegill. It's just lots of little pop, 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 pop. Sometimes there's no bite at all, and you're just, you've been dead sticking it, and then you go to do your drag, and you just notice the tip of the rod starting to, and you think you're snagged, and then sometimes when you're like, oh, and like I was saying, you don't set the hook most of the time, but I'm not really setting the hook. I'm kind of, in my mind, I'm popping it off a rock.
You're just
And then
lifting.
sometimes
Yeah.
when you do that, that's when your line will rip away. And then, then the other times when you don't feel the bite, you just see the line start, swimming towards your way. But like, for instance, like I caught a 19 3/4 inch spot on it on the goofiest cast I could have made. I was just messing with a buddy of mine. He paddled over my spot and I turned around and threw it at him, just goofing off. And I just let it float to the bottom. And like, as soon as I picked up on it, my rod slapped and took off running. And that was, and you want to talk, like, if you like to fight fish, drop shots, just like, anything on a spinning reel, just back that drag off just a little bit and you're in for some fun. I haven't caught a smallmouth doing it yet. That's a goal for this year. Hopefully that I'll take care of in lacrosse. But spots, love it. Like that color Morning Dawn is like a spotted bass. Like this thing does work on spotted bass. And
I had a fun fight this morning.
did you?
Yeah, 17 3/4 smallmouth on. It was on casting gear, but 12-pound line. Man, he was running. He was pulling drag off of it, and it was going everywhere. And then I was trying to net him, and every time I go to net him, he'd like dart off a different way or something, try to go under the boat. It was a fun fight.
I hate when a smallmouth tries to bulldog you under the boat like that. That is so, because that's when you lose them.
Well, see, like usually it's like, hey, it's not that big a deal. Like try to get him back at it, but that's the first time I think it's happened since I've had a pedal drive, and I'm like, he's gonna get caught up in my prop and everything. It's gonna be bad.
I've heard of a many a fish landed through that hole.
Oh yeah.
We
Wow.
gave an award away one year at our trail stop on Gunnersville for whoever had to pull a fish through the Hobie drive hole, because Hobies are the worst about that happening. And sure enough, a guy, like, he's like, no, I got pictures of it to prove it. He had pictures of his drive, the fish laying on the deck, and like 5 feet of line wrapped around the fins. But yeah,
Uh,
I had
so go ahead.
he was talking about, a fun bite. I had one this weekend again, not a drop shot, but I haven't been fishing grassy lakes a lot lately. I haven't been fishing a lot lately. And I went out to Gunnersville for the first time since like March. And I hooked like a maybe 3-pounder in the grass. And with the extra grass weight and everything, like, it was peeling drag. And I was like, pulling myself to it. And I thought I had a monster. And then I remembered why I don't like Gunnersville all that much. I was like, oh yeah, 3-pound fish, 5 pounds of grass.
I went out tonight just for a little bit once we got home, and still trying to improve my position in the new tournament for this month because I'm only got 2 fish. But I saw Brad's in the group chat where he posted about catching a catfish on a spinnerbait. Well, I was throwing an inline spinner, just a little 1/4 ounce inline spinner in the river, and sure enough, a catfish nailed it. So I had a good fight with that, and then of course the storms rolled through and I had to bail. But definitely a fun fight. Catfish
while talking
on.
about a good fight, catfish, Will did it. I caught one on an underspin, and it was great. Like, pulling you around, everything you can do to get it off the bottom. You can't get it off the bottom.
Right. It's kind of the opposite of bass. Bass you want to keep down. Catfish you're trying to keep up.
Yeah,
But
it was great, man. I thought I had like a 9-pound smallmouth in that creek because I've been catching smallmouth when that happened, and I was like, oh yeah. I
well,
foul hooked it.
speaking of smallmouth, you said about and I've heard a lot of people on the Susquehanna talk about drop shotting, but that's current. So are you just drifting and letting it pop, 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 hop along the bottom, or how do you fish a drop shot in current? Have you
I,
fished a drop shot in current?
I have. I don't know if I can say that I've perfected it. What I normally am doing when I'm fishing a drop shot in current is one, it's a really bad day and I'm struggling. But so like if I'm going with the current, I'll turn the boat sideways and uh, drag train sometimes or anchor, whatever you got to do. I normally don't slow myself down. I just turn sideways and float. But I will throw back upstream, and you're using a light enough weight that it's just going to keep coming by you.
Okay.
But anytime I do that and I feel it hang up, I get the rod tip up and I'll let it sit there in the current. And I've caught a bunch of fish that way. But the same with anything in like a good current. Sometimes it'll just be, if the current's kind of heavy and it's just kind of like doing whatever, you catch fish doing that. I'd like to take it somewhere like the Susky or something like that and really give it a try on something like that. Like I've got a lot of stuff like this while I'm up there on the Mississippi River that I'm gonna like. There's a solid chance I'm gonna do terrible in that tournament because I'm really just out there having fun and trying stuff. Like whole goal, go up there and frog fish on the Mississippi River because everybody says it's so awesome. But I'm ADD, so there's a solid chance like a couple hours into that, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm gonna go out to the main channel and vertical drop shot something. I don't know.
You could come try it out on the Duck River first. Just saying.
I need to get up there, man. I've got hopefully after I get the Bass Nation event over with in August, I can kind of like take my stress level down a notch and then like really go do some stuff. So
I'll be waiting.
why don't you come? Why don't y'all come fish that event?
What up north?
No, the
Or
Bass
the- or
Nation
the-
event on
oh.
Gunners.
The idea did cross my mind, but it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to join Bass. I'm gonna have to buy an Alabama fishing license. Gonna, what was the other thing?
Man, you got to pay to
Oh,
play, bro.
then the entry fee for the tournament, then lodging and gas and all that. I'm like,
But just think that, dude, like, so Gunnersville's one of those lakes that at
it's
any
one of those
given,
lakes that a lot of those local people already know, and I've never fished before, and I'm
hey,
gonna get
I've
my
seen those
stomp
local
after
guys.
spending hundreds of dollars to go down there and
I've
fish
seen
it.
those local guys hammer them, and then I've seen those local guys get their butts whipped. That's what I'm hoping for, which
Yeah,
I'm not fishing the event. So,
I doubt they've ever got whipped by somebody on my level.
hey,
So, I
even
mean,
if
I guess I
it can
could
happen.
put a 1 ounce drop shot weight on there and see what I can do with it.
There you go.
But
All right. I'm trying to think of any other questions. So we covered the rigs, the setups, how the cast and retrieve.
what are you trying to imitate? Like, is that it's a plastic worm, but is it supposed to be more imitating like a bait fish type thing
I
that's
think
just
so.
kind of
Just like
chilling? Or
a suspended, smaller profile bait fish. I was listening to them to the talking about the Ned rig in on the final cast and how they were talking about um,
it was
fish
supposed to
looking
be a
a
crawl
molting
for
crawl.
adventures.
right.
Yeah. Right.
So
I
it's
never
basically
would
like
have
a
thought that.
defenseless easy meal.
Yeah.
So using what they said there, that's kind of changed my understanding for it. I was like, okay, so basically it looks like this is going to be a quick, easy meal. I don't have to work a lot, expend a lot of energy for it because in the summer, it's hot. That costs them more energy to chase down that. Okay, I can just take this. Um, but like when you go to something like this, the Kitech, you're obviously going after a bait fish profile. And when you use this, you can actually do a different retrieve because it's got that boot tail on it, so it will
I
paddle.
meant to ask you about that whenever you talked about
Yeah,
using.
I wish I had more experience with this one. Um, I really, really want to come up to Tennessee and try this in some of the, like, we've got smallmouth creeks here, but I want to get up a little more north where there's a lot more, they're more prevalent, and I want to try this. Just, you know, you think about guys when they fish smallmouth up in the north in the Great Lakes, it's, tiny profile, tiny bait fish, stuff like that. So I want to give this a try to know for sure. Like, but I think like these like gizzard shad colors, 3-inch, and you can get these smaller. Like I think that would be a smallmouth hammer that not a lot of people are thinking about throwing. Get in the river, get in a creek, throw a drop shot first, not last. So
I'm gonna have to set one up after this and finally give it a shot. Like I said, going into this, like I'd seen the setups and stuff, but I've never like really analyzed them to see how they had like the line tied to the hook and then tied to the sinker.
I'll
What,
see if I can figure out what that knot is called for the hook. I have no clue, but it's
something
so simple.
something I just thought about is, okay, so you said, about a foot from the hook to the sinker. Whenever you're storing that, a lot of rods have like the hook keeper on it and you put it on there. So what do you do with that that's that weight to keep it from like bouncing around and wrapping all around everything and all
I
that?
wrap it all around everything first.
Okay. Well, at
There are
least
some
it's a controlled
companies that,
wrap.
yeah, there are some companies. I think it's Cal Coast Fishing makes one that clips onto your rod that actually has a little groove in it that you pull the line through, and it has a cup, so it'll like hold
Yep.
the tension of the drop shot weight. I need to
I
get some
have
of
a few
those.
of those. They come
Do
in
they
a
work?
pack of 3. Yeah, it works. For
I need.
for the few times that I've had it, I have one clipped onto my rod just in case I try it. So
I think it's pretty sad that as much as I throw a drop shot, I haven't even thought about buying one of those. I just, I hook the hook on the bail, and then I literally hold the rod and I helicopter the rod, and then I put the rod sleeve on and go about my day. But it never stays that way. It's always a mess. Like if I go get my drop shot rod out right now, there's probably 4 foot of leader on it, and it's probably going like 9 different directions on the. It looks so bad. But
So
yeah, it can be aggravating, but there are products you can get. I mean, I actually want to say that I think it's Daiwa or Lose makes a reel that's got a seat for the weight.
huh,
huh. So
that's
it's like
smart.
specifically for
Mm,
drop shotting then?
yeah, I think Skeet Reese has drop shot rods that have like a groove in the reel seat for a weight. But some there's stuff out there. I just don't have it because I'm lazy.
Me too. So I feel you.
If you want to try it, for anybody that wants to try drop shot and have problems with patience, confidence, all that stuff, find somewhere that you know there's a bunch of fish. Even if you're fishing a pond full of brim, start basic. Small hook, number one round hook. 3/16 ball weight. Get it all tied up. I would say like a foot from the weight to the hook. Just throw it out there. Hold your rod up. Sit still. Even if you just drop it off a pier, just look down. There's bluegill. Throw it there. Bluegill love this thing. So you can do
So
that and gain confidence. Or like I was saying, going in a marina, like in the winter when I just want to fish and it's really cold, the water, whether it's wind, storms, whatever is not cooperating, we'll just go in a marina. I'll just sit in the marina all day and throw the drop shot, and you will catch everything in the marina. Big brim, bluegill, bass, everything. And it just shows you it's a great way to test. Okay, I got more bites when I wiggled it. I got more bites when I literally just sat perfectly still. I got more bites when I popped the tip of the hook through the nose. Cut the bait in half, really small profile. That worked better. tons of different. I mean, it's just like anything in fishing. Just play with it.
So Duck River, I'm probably going to be catching a lot of rock bass.
Dude, I love catching rock bass. Like straight legit. They fight like smallmouth for like 5 seconds. Like I've caught. We did a little like one of our tournaments here. There's a side pot for biggest rock bass, and
Really?
yeah, and I didn't catch the biggest one during the tournament, but like the day before, I caught one that was like 10 or 11 inches, and it was thick, but like, and we always catch them on top water, and they'll hit that 110 or 90 whopper plopper, and they'll just blow out of the water, and they will go crazy, and you think you've caught good river smallmouth, and then it just like it almost acts like it dies, it turns on its side, floats up, and then just you ski it in. But I
Are you
love
talking about rock bass? It's like a bluegill?
yeah, panfish.
Huh. You almost have stronger rock bass than we do.
Dude,
I mean, it feels like a bass, but it feels like a smaller bass to me. But I've caught quite a bit of them on that Wicked Weights, Wicked Willow with the Kitech on there. But last year I caught one off a jig, and this thing, I didn't know it at the time. I didn't even know what it was at the time. Like I had to like send messages like what kind of fish is this? And I wish I would have measured it, because now looking back, I believe the Tennessee state record is like 11 inches.
yeah,
And
I think that's around what ours is.
And this thing, I don't know if it would have been a new state record, but it would have been close, because I thought it was just like some kind of weird small bass, like some type of, spot or something. But like it had to be at least 10.
Yeah, I've caught.
It was a good sized one.
I bet you I've caught probably around 10 inches. Like completely honest. The place we fish them, they're just huge, because it's a narrow, fast-moving creek. So they just, they sit in current all day and hide in little nooks and crannies. And they're just as aggressive as the bass. They're looking for the same. I mean, and they'll bite. Like obviously, they're biting 110 whopper ploppers. They're looking for huge profile. I catch them on Texas rigs all the time, but they're.
I've caught bluegill on whopper ploppers.
Yeah,
that's crazy. Like it's as big as the bluegill.
I caught one last year the size of like a small dinner plate on a whopper plopper or bluegill. Biggest bluegill I've ever seen in person. Wow. I was so mad that it was not a bass. But no, dude, we'll get you. You really do. You need to load up and come down here and let me take you down that place I'm talking about, because like I can get you on smallmouth.
Well, we can do that sometime. I just don't know about the bass event. It'd be a lot cheaper just to go down there and fish with you.
No, yeah, of course. I mean, the bass event, like we're kind of the in between. It's not your local club level. It's not the national trail.
Now, so are you okay? You're kind of like a director over a local trail, right? Or
now our local trail, I'm on the board of directors. I run our throwdown events.
Is it being ran, like the bass event being ran through the club, or is it like completely separate?
Completely separate. So I got appointed president of Bassmaster, president of the Alabama chapter of the Bassmaster Kayak Division, basically. So we were going to hold it in conjunction with all of our local clubs by turning our state championship into a Bass Nation event. Here, our clubs didn't agree to that because they didn't want to pay the extra fees and stuff, and that's fine. So
it's also an issue with motors too, ain't it? Because like, don't your local trails don't do motors?
But you're right, and Alabama is anti-motor.
We will not. So is Tennessee.
Yeah, which is fine. Alabama and Tennessee are about as grassroots as it gets when it comes to that. It's fine. I'm a believer that the motor doesn't give you an advantage because I mean, Hobie is a perfect example of that. Not Hobie the kayak, Hobie like the Hobie BOS division.
Yeah.
They don't allow motors. Those guys catch giant bags. Bassmaster events like I can't remember if it was Cody or Russ. I'm drawing a blank. Paddled his way up into spots, whipped over. I think
that's Russ.
I think it was Russ because I think he was punching all that shallow water. But
I know Russ paddled for the longest time because it blew my mind when I found out he was still paddling, and he's out here winning these big events, and I'm like I don't know, it's just like
well,
you
that
got to
right there, I
pedal
mean,
at least just to do well, right?
yeah. You know, we have events out here, man. Guys out here whip you with a $300 kayak, like with bag sizes that if we were having that Bass Nation event, he would have whipped every person with a motor. It doesn't matter, in my opinion. Not getting off topic there, but for the y'all are the noob segment for people looking to get into it. I wouldn't be deterred by people having motors. They have no advantage over you. They just may have more of a budget to spend on stuff. Like,
But they
don't let
might
it.
not get quite as tired as you do.
I mean, there's your advantage there, but something that I told people, you know, if you don't have a motor, you don't have pedals, and you're paddling, okay, you can't go as far, but I guarantee you that you will figure out how to thoroughly fish your area better than a person that's moving, you know, all over the place. So there's pros and cons, but
Well, awesome, man.
Yeah.
Sean, did you have any other questions about the drop shot or?
The only other question I was going to ask is, I always consider it more of a deeper water bait. Is there an application of shallow water, or is it pretty much?
oh yeah,
Yeah.
second biggest fish I've caught on a drop shot, I caught in 2 foot of water.
Okay. So you're
I
still
just
using it
changed
shallow.
yeah,
But,
when I'm fishing it shallow, I just I mean, and obviously you could probably throw other baits in there. I don't throw a Ned rig. A lot of guys would have went to Ned rig. I don't throw Ned rigs. Um, so shallow riprap. I caught, I think it was like an 18-inch largemouth. I went down to like maybe 6 inches between the hook and the weight, and was throwing it, pull up into the riprap, throwing parallel with the bank, and doesn't happen all the time. I wore him out that day. Had quite a few fish in the 14, 15-inch range, and then that one good one. But yeah, you can, yeah, shallow water, deep water. I mean, definitely, I think its home is vertical dropping on fish in 50 feet of water, something like that. But you can throw it everywhere. Just adjust your lengths, maybe adjust your bait, what weight you're using, depending on where you're fishing.
I'm
But
gonna have to give that a try because the only place I have tried it is on my local lake where it's 30 feet deep. I have never thrown it anywhere but there because that was always like, oh, okay, I'm deep water. I can see them on my graph. I'm gonna drop this down, and I'll have to give it a try in other places because
yeah, well, for instance, like me talking about fishing in the marina, that marina doesn't get deeper than 8 feet anywhere.
okay,
And a lot of the boat slips that I'm fishing are like the perimeter ones up where it's 3 or 4 foot of water beneath the boat. So, I'll fish all through that riprap, and then I'll come down and fish around each pier of, each boat slip and stuff like that. So and like when the water, which in there, boats are coming in and out, so the water's always kind of churned up. But there are instances where I've fished it in clear enough water, shallow enough where you could almost sight fish it. So
okay,
you got to be a
Yeah,
little stealthy when you do that, but
right.
in theory, you could make it happen.
yeah. After talking about it, I plan on rigging one up for next time I hit the Duck River. I want to give it a shot out there.
Yeah, I typically like right now. I guarantee if I went in there, it's probably at the 1 foot range, hook to weight, and that's about where I stay until it gets really cold.
I've tried it on the Susquehanna a couple times, but it is so rocky that I hung up almost instantly every time. Like it was
And see
really hard not to
that's
get
where
it.
I would try bigger ball headed or ball drop shot weight.
Okay.
It may not work because I'm not familiar like what kind of like rock bottom you have.
It's like
But
ledgy and chunk, big, pretty good sized chunk at times. So
sometimes you can change up your angle. That's something I've learned fishing moving water more is, like if I'm facing upstream and I'm getting hung up, I'll turn around and face downstream and I won't get hung up. Or I'll turn, perpendicular and won't get hung up. Stuff like that. I mean, you may still get hung up because, I mean, the rock's just scattered out. It's But once you fish an area enough and you kind of know, like when you paddle up and you're like, okay, I know there's that rock pile. You fish it enough, you're gonna be like, okay, I can't hit this from here. I have to hit this one from there and that one from over here, and you could probably play with it and
Right.
make that
That
work.
makes sense. Definitely. Yep.
And then you could also like, which weight style are you using?
Well, I tried a couple. I've tried the cylinder, and I actually just recently, Lindy makes a no snag weight that it's kind of like, it almost looks like a banana. It has a bend to it, and then on the bottom of it's a cylindrical weight, but it's kind of has a curve, and then on the bottom it has this like probably 2 inch long plastic peg that idea, I guess, is the peg is what hits and keeps the part that can snag up out of
Oh,
the rocks. So I can
I'll have
I
to,
could run up and grab some. They're up in my tackle
you'll have
box.
to
I
show
can.
me some of those, dude. I'll have to check that out. Because I'm
Okay.
always with everything, because I'm a gear whore. I uh, I would be willing to give it a try.
I
Because
have a couple different ones too. I found some that have like rattles built into them. It's actually a lead weight with they cast a little plastic tube in it with beads in it. And
that's cool.
yeah, I was like, that sounds like it would work, but
So like you're talking about different crazy drop shot stuff. Gamakatsu makes one called a spin shot, and it's this hook, but it's got like a barrel swivel on each side of it, and you just, instead of tying your hook into your leader, you tie your leader to the bottom when your main line to the top, but it moves so that the fish can't gain ground on you. So that's, I've heard, you know, one buddy of mine's like they're great. Other buddy of mine's like they're terrible. They're garbage. Don't spend your money on them. So I don't know. I haven't bought them yet.
when I saw those, I'm like, that's for people who just don't know how to tie the knot.
That's kind of what I told him. I was like, you just don't know how to tie the right knot. But I mean, and I can't say that because it took me forever to figure that out.
I want to say I just did a Palomar with a really long tag end, and then just you tie it and then run the tag end back through, and that pulls the hook out and makes it stand out. I
Yeah,
think that
I've seen that before where like you said, you finish the knot, you come back through, come back up, go back through the eye, and that's what pivots it
right.
back up. I couldn't, and I was probably overthinking it. I could never get that knot to work for me. It would stand up and like turn. Um, I'm trying to remember what knot I was using before the one I was telling you about where you tie the loop and then wrap the hook around. There was another one I did. It was really good, but it was more time consuming. Like this way I'm doing it, I can, in the wind, I can tie that Alberto knot, tie on that hook, and do it all in like, you know, 3 minutes. Like I don't know, it's just super simple, and I haven't lost too many of them since I got the whole line sizing right, if that's what that was. But I've stopped having the knot slip. I can honestly say I've only broke the hook off one time, and I think that when I did my knot, when I was tightening it up, you have to pay attention. Like what I'll do is I'll put the hook in my mouth
Hmm.
and I'll pull like that, away from my face. I was doing it holding it in my hand one time, and that loop figure eighted, and it gave it a pinch point, and I hooked the fish and just popped. And when it came up, I still had the weight, but the hook was gone, and that's never happened. So I think that's what caused that because I've never been able to do it again. But yeah,
Cool.
Yeah.
tons of stuff. I'm not the professional on it. It's something that I've learned probably in the last 2 years. I really love doing it. But I encourage anybody that has any opinions on it because there's so many ways to do it, and there's so many ways I haven't done or learned how to do it. So, like anything else, Google and YouTube are your friend,
Absolutely.
And paddle and fin.
and paddle and fin.
But Jimmy, we appreciate you coming on and giving your knowledge and opinion on drop shot.
No, man, I
Uh,
love coming on and talking with y'all.
we
It's
like it
fun
when you
to
come on here too.
it's
Absolutely.
fun to share it.
But if y'all don't already, um, make sure you check out Jimmy on the Reel Down segment. They do live stream on our Facebook page, the Paddle and Fin Facebook page on Monday nights, and then it comes out as a podcast on Tuesday. So make sure you check that out. Jimmy, you got any final words?
Or sponsors you want to shout out or anything?
Oh yeah, well I'll still shout out Hook One, even though they're in the middle of their unexpected closing. Love those guys, and sorry for everything those guys are having to deal with, and losing jobs and everything, and the crazy hours they're working right now to get everything taken care of. And New Canoe, been with them this year. I've enjoyed that so much. Love the boats. Loved them for a while. Trying to think. I'm getting to the point where I'm going to start writing all this down.
You mentioned Dobbins, right?
Yeah, Dobbins. Love
Yeah,
their rods.
Gadget.
Dobbins and Yak Gadget, man.
We know
John's
your
doing
sponsors
good.
better than you do.
Yeah. Me and John's like a buddy, so it's weird for me to like if I wasn't even sponsored by him, it wouldn't matter because I would still use his stuff. And I love John. He's a good guy. We talk all the time now too, man. I really like what he's doing, and I do my best to try to hook him up with other dealers anywhere I can. And then, but yeah, Dobbins, that one was kind of unexpected. I've used their rods for 2 or 3 years now, and for anybody that's getting into this and you want a quality rod, man, you can start in their lowest price range in the Colt and get a really good rod. And you can just work your way up from there. I think the Colts are like $59 or $69. The Fury series up from that's like $120. They're the kind of rods that they come and tell you what techniques they're designed for on the rod, and then you can go all the way up to like $400 and $500 rods.
And Jimmy almost sold me on one of those Furies. Yeah,
if I get you down here fishing with me, I promise to God you'll have one to go back.
But you're a good salesman, and you probably would have sold me on it if I wasn't like.
Well, they also didn't have the
creature
one
of
you were
habit.
looking for.
That's true, but I'm kind of a creature of habit, and the only like quality rods I've ever had was a Ducket rod, and so I liked it, so I kind of stuck with that. But so if I wasn't so hard headed in that sense, you probably
No,
would've
I mean, I used to run Ducket. The thing that got me off of them on the Dobbins was the frog rod. That's the one that, if anybody asks, I like to let them try it first because it's crazy to get a heavy action, like a mag heavy rod like that has so much tip. Like, I've never used another rod, but when I'm working a frog, I feel everything. It's not just watching it. Like, you feel every movement that thing makes. But we'll save that for another. Call me back when you want to know about frog fishing. I got you. I got a guest I could bring with you too, man. The guru of frog fishing around here.
Right on.
Cool, man. All right. Well, again, everyone, thanks for tuning in and checking us out. This has been the Bass Fishing for Noobs segment on the Paddle and Fin podcast, where we bring you the techniques, the tricks, and the tips to help you rip more lips. Thank you guys, and talk to you later.
You've got it dialed in now, buddy.
Thanks for tuning in to another killer episode on Paddle and Fin. Don't forget to go check out our website at paddle&fin.com. Don't forget to check out the YouTube channel at Paddle and Fin. If you got a question, comment, want to hear from a future guest on a future episode, feel free to email us at paddle&fin@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media at Paddle and Fin on Facebook and Instagram. Shout out to our show supporters, Angler. The Angler button and app just makes for a better time on the water and creates a virtual logbook for every fishing outing out on the water. Shout out to Rocktown Adventures, located in northern Illinois, for all your kayaking, camping, and hiking needs. TRC Covers, protect your investment. Catch Products, shout out to Catch Products. Go to catchproducts.com and put the Paddle and Fin logo directly on your catch board. Shout out to Jig Masters Jigs. When in doubt, get the jig out. Go to jigmasters.com, use promo code PNF20 and save 20% on all your jig and tackle needs.